sorry, can't come to the phone right now. I'm listening to Party Talk Podcast.
Welcome to the Party Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Cooper Keimig. Joining me today is Chris Keimig. Today's episode, we'll be talking about fantasy football week 5. We'll go over some waiver wire ads, our favorite sleepers, last week's favorites, and our bets for this week. And we have a new segment that we'll get into a little bit later. Just to recap, last fantasy football episode, we usually end off with our bets of the week. Mine did hit. It was a 5-leg parlay for plus money. It was Sam Laporta, 25 plus yards. Amon-Ra, 50 plus yards. Jared Goff, 200 plus passing yards. And then an alternate Detroit plus 6 spread that did end up winning already. So we'll go ahead and get started. Take a look into this week's waiver wire.
How much did you win, Coop?
$20.
How much?
20.
20? All right.
All right. Yep. So we'll take a look at this week's waiver wire. I know most leagues, they ran waivers last night or this morning, but there'll still be some good options out there. Do you want to start off with some of your favorites who you might want to add this week, Chris?
Matthew Stafford's still out there. He's available in 33% of the leagues, and he's getting Cooper Kupp back this week, hopefully. I don't think he's been reinstated yet, but there's a good chance he comes back. If not, it might be next week. So I think the price is going to go up. So I'd pick him up this week before next week hits. CJ Stroud of the Texans. He's only available in 32% of the leagues. He's the number 10 ranked quarterback right now. I picked him up a couple weeks ago. I got one team I have 3 quarterbacks on because I just saw him out there and he's the best available. So I might be hanging on to him and maybe make a trade. I think the other players I have is Mahomes. So maybe I trade Mahomes and just go Stroud the rest of the year. But he's doing great. You got a bye coming up. You better pick him up now because he's not going to last. And he's the real deal right now, I think.
Yeah, I want to add on CJ Stroud real quick.
Yep.
The way he's playing right now, he's with backup O-linemen. His whole offensive line is injured. I think once he gets, Emery Tunsil back, all of his other starters on the offensive line, he can be even better, which I can't even imagine because he's, top 10 right now. And the sky's the limit for him.
If I trade him to you for Jefferson, that's a deal?
No, I'm not doing that.
Not that good yet, huh? Okay. No. Jaleel McLaughlin of the Denver, 29.4 points last week, replacing Devontae Williams. Devontae might come back. It's not 100%, but that guy led the NCAA in rushing in a career. He had like 8,000 yards for some small school. Remember, is it Youngstown or?
Not sure.
Just a smaller school. Latavius Murray, he's still out there. He'll get you, about 8 points is about max he'll get you. But, yeah, with all these buys coming up, 8 points might be pretty good for you. Tyler Boyd is a great number 3 receiver. With T. Higgins out, he bumps up number 2. But you're still kind of iffy with Burrow. Burrow's kind of struggling right now. I heard he's the lowest ADOT in NFL history right now, like 4 yards. I mean, he just dropped back and just dink it because I don't think he's got any push off on that foot right now with his calf. There's a couple other ones out there. Mike Evans is injured. Trey Palmer from Nebraska, he's out there. But how about the Falcons? Their number 1 tight end. Nope, not Kyle Pitts. It's Johnny. What's his name?
Jonnu Smith.
Jonnu, isn't it something like that?
Yep.
Is it Jonnu Smith? Is that his name?
Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, he's ranked number 11 right now, which is better than Pitts. It's hard to believe. Jake Ferguson's out there too, but how about a kicker? And I noticed you picked him up last.
I did. Right as soon as you put him in the notes, I picked him up.
He's Brett Maher of the Rams, ranked number 2, double-digit points every single week. The Rams aren't putting it in the end zone, but they can push it downfield a little bit. So if you're looking for a kicker, a lot of people don't check kickers. I mean, they can't score a lot of points, but 13, 14, 15 points a week, hell, I'll take that. So just some guys out there I think you'd be picking up.
Yep. I like those. Like I said, I picked up Brett Maher. Not a lot of people look at kickers. One of the most important things to look at if you're streaming them and you're looking really into detail is kickers who play in domes. They perform better. They don't have to deal with the elements. And, also looking for a kicker who has a high point spread that week. So if you had, Bills versus Dolphins, you might want to look at kicker like that. Some of my waiver ads are Romeo Dobbs. He's rostered in 34% of leagues. He's wide receiver 16 right now. He put up a great game last week with Christian Watson returning. He's averaging 15.1 PPR points per game. Over the last 2 games, he's got 25 total targets. That's elite. And he's got 73 and 95 yards and a touchdown, both within the last 2 games. He's someone you should look into adding. This is more of a handcuff option, Elijah Mitchell. Christian McCaffrey, he's been amazing, the best running back in the league right now, but he's getting almost every touch. If you play fantasy the past 3-4 years, I don't want to say it's going to happen, but something usually happens to Christian McCaffrey. So, I mean, if you can add Elijah Mitchell, he could be a league winner down the stretch if something were to happen. And then my last one is going to be Jameson Williams, only 16% rostered. He's coming off an early suspension. They gave him, I think they reduced it by 2 games. He's ramping up for this week. He's super fast, super big, deep threat, high draft capital. I think he's someone worth taking a flyer on, especially tied to Jared Goff, who's a pretty dang good quarterback. So those are going to be my ads this week. All righty. So we're going to head into the new segment called Who's in the Pits, named after Kyle Pitts, who I have on a few fantasy leagues. I think Kyle Pitts embodies this the most because he's a player who has a whole lot of talent, but he's just not performing to where we would want to start somebody. So if you want to go and start off with your Who's in the Pits player.
My pit of the week, as I'm going to call it, is Daniel Jones. He's only got 2 passing touchdowns this year, 6 interceptions. You take away the rushing, he averaged like 2 points a game. I think he was drafted probably 14 around like the 14th quarterback off the board because he does have a lot of running ability, but he's just not running a whole lot. He had a big week 2. He scored like 30-some points. He had 2 touchdowns. There's only 2 passing touchdowns of the year, and he had a rushing touchdown. You take away that one big week, he's averaging a whole 4 points a week. So he's my pit of the week.
Well, my pit of the week is going to be Joe Burrow. I mean, he was drafted as, QB4, QB5, even with the injury concerns. There's just no way you should be starting him in any league right now. I mean, I think you're better off starting Taysom Hill at quarterback at this point. He's just not healthy. He can't move outside the pocket. Like you said, that stat about his average depth of target, 4 yards? Yeah. I mean, he's taken 2 seconds and he's passing, which I think will be good for Tyler Boyd, but that's not what this segment's about. His highest PPR total this year is 15 points. His other 3, 3.18 PPR points, 8.16, and 4.7. That is terrible from a quarterback. I mean, at this point, I'd start, like I said, any quarterback in the NFL right now for fantasy over Joe Burrow until after week 7, which is their bye. Hopefully, you can get a little more healthy, but I wouldn't be starting him right now. Alrighty. So let's just review our favorite players to start that we had last week. You want to go ahead and start, Chris?
Well, I predicted Justin Fields. I predicted 25 points, and he scored 27.9. He only had 25 yards rushing. I thought he'd get most of his points rushing, but he actually did it passing, which is shocking. He had 4 touchdown passing. He only had 3 in his first 3 games. So is it a fluke? I don't know. But they did play the Broncos, so it's kind of, it is what it is. But then Travis Kelce, not Travis Swift, Travis Kelce. I predicted 20, but he finished with 12. But that was still top 5 for a tight end. So.
Yep. Well, it seems like every player that I pick as my sleeper has a bad week. Every player that I think, won't perform has a good week. But I picked Darren Waller to have the best week, and he didn't. This Giants offense is terrible. Kind of goes with that last segment when we were talking about Daniel Jones. I don't think they have a passing touchdown at home since last year. And this offensive line is awful. Darren Waller, he's just not seeing enough targets. So that was a bad call by me.
I'm benching him in my one league.
Yep. I think I'm going to
drop
start.
that, but I'm going to bench him.
I think I'm going to start Jake Ferguson over him this week.
Yeah.
But alrighty, let's review our sleepers from last week. You want to go and start?
Yeah, I had Andy Dalton, but he did not play. But Bryce Young did come up. He was 25 for 32, so I'm guessing Andy Dalton would have been just as good and probably a couple more touchdowns. But so that was kind of a wash there. I predicted Quentin Johnson of the Los Angeles Chargers. He came up with a whole 2.8. I just don't think he's got the offense down yet, or maybe he's not a good blocker as Josh Palmer. But I think in the long run, he's the pick over Josh Palmer.
Yep. Well, my sleeper last week was Josh Palmer. He had a pretty good week, 10.7 PPR points, 3 catches on 8 targets with 77 yards. This was a game where Justin Herbert got hurt. He hurt his non-throwing hand, but it's still hard to snap under center. That could have also plagued Quentin Johnson because they really didn't throw that much. Justin Herbert had a great game, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns. But pretty solid call for Josh Palmer. Let's look at our bad week predictions. These were the players, who were highly talented and we thought would have a bad week. Mine was DJ Moore, and he had the best week of the year. Now we know that these Broncos are tanking. Their defense is awful. They were very good last year. I don't know what happened. DJ Moore, he had 27 PPR points. I didn't start him, but I still won my week. He had 8 catches for 131 yards and 1 touchdown. If you watched his touchdown, I didn't think he had both feet in, but they still called it a touchdown. But I was wrong on this one. Who was your bad prediction?
Alvin Kamara. I'm sorry. He had a pretty good week for being sitting on the bench, or I guess being suspended, but 13 receptions. 13 receptions for a running back. That's phenomenal. Only gained 33 yards. So I didn't watch that game at all. So I'm guessing it's just a couple dinks,
Yeah, because Derek Carr was, he wasn't supposed to start because of his shoulder injury.
Okay,
and
yeah,
they said a couple days before that, he wasn't. And then I think the day of, they said he was starting, and he just was not throwing deep at all. He had a couple deep shots, but mostly dink and dunks for Kamara.
Yeah, so he had 51 yards rushing, so he ended up with 21.4 points. So that's pretty darn good. I'll take that at running back any day.
Yep. Alrighty. Just want to give you guys a heads up. It's week 5, so we're starting with the buys. There are 4 teams on bye this week. Got the Cleveland Browns, Los Angeles Chargers, Seattle Seahawks, and Tampa Bay Bucks. I know this can result into some tough decisions on who to drop and who to pick up, so best of luck with those. I made a few tough decisions so far, and
when you draft, don't you look at their bye weeks and then kind of dictate if I'm going to take a player or not?
I usually do. Recently, I've been, if I'm going to focus on bye weeks, I want them all to be in the same week and just kind of chalk a loss, and then I don't have to worry about it. So a lot of my teams are like that, where I have 3-4 players on bye. I know we face up a couple times this year, and every time we face up, you got at least 4 players on bye, so I'm lucky.
I haven't looked that far ahead, but thanks. But
And I
I
was
like
I was planning it out.
Yeah, I always like to have two guys on a bye at a week. Then I have if I have two wide receivers that are studs, then I gotta make sure I got two other guys that are going their place and make sure they're not having buys that week. But sometimes taking a loss one week ain't too bad either. So
Yeah, that's the way I prefer to do it. Just kind of get all the buys out of the way at the same time. And I mean, you never know who you could pick up on the waiver wire. They could put up 60 points. All righty, so let's take a look at this week's matchups. Tomorrow, Thursday night, Chicago and Washington. Those will be at least my bet of the week for that we'll do later today. Sunday, we do have an early game, Jacksonville and Buffalo. It's at 8:30. Make sure you guys set your lineups. That should be a good game over in London again. And then we got Houston versus Atlanta, Panthers versus the Lions, Tennessee versus Indianapolis, New York versus Miami Dolphins, New Orleans versus the Patriots, Baltimore versus Pittsburgh, Philadelphia versus the Rams, sorry. Cincinnati Bengals versus Arizona Cardinals. You got New York Jets versus Denver, Kansas City versus Minnesota. You got Dallas versus San Francisco on the Sunday night game. Should be a good one. And then finishing up on the week is Green Bay versus Las Vegas. Hopefully Devonta Adams plays that game. Nice little revenge game. Alrighty, so we'll finish off this podcast with our bets of the week. I'll go ahead and start. I usually do my bet for Thursday night because this is when the podcast will be posted up on Wednesday night. So I'm doing another parlay for Thursday night on DraftKings. I'm going to go Justin Fields, 150 passing yards. Sam Howell, 175 passing yards. Justin Fields, 25 rushing yards. Brian Robinson, 40 rushing yards. Khalil Herbert, 25 rushing yards. And I'm going to take an alternate spread for the Commanders 6.5 plus. This will give you plus money, and that's what I'm putting down on Thursday and hoping to go 2-0. What you got, Chris, for your bet of the week?
I got Zach Wilson. Hard to believe I'm picking Zach Wilson, but the only reason I'm picking him is because they're playing the Broncos. So I got 1.5 touchdown passes against Denver. Denver's given up 40 points to wide receivers this year. So there's a good chance he'll get a touchdown or hopefully gets those 2 touchdowns that we need to win. There's no rushing props on DraftKings yet, but Denver's even worse on running backs. They're averaging 44 points, fantasy points a game. That's 10 more than the next closest team. So they've given up 7 rushing touchdowns. So if there will be some more rushing props out there, but it's nothing posted yet. So look for a rushing prop there. I can see Reese Hall running a big one back there. I can't see Dalvin. Dalvin, he's not doing a whole lot right now. I picked him in one of my leads. I'm just thinking, God, maybe it's time to drop him, but not yet. I got Chase Young of the Washington Commanders. He needs a quarter of a sack, and that's on Fields on Thursday night. Chase Young's a beast. The Bears don't have much for blocking up there. I know Fields is going to start taking off running, so he might get one of those cheap ones, or he's just going to run over the top of that tackle and guard and just get an easy sack. But I bet you he ends up with 2 full sacks. I got Alvin Kamara of the Saints. Rushing and receiving yards, 79.5. Or you can take the receiving yards as 24. So if Carr's still got that bad shoulder, I haven't heard a whole lot what's going on with them. 13 catches last week for only 33 yards. So, 13 catches. He should have at least 50, I'm guessing, if he gets that many again. He's averaging almost 5 yards a carry. So that 80 yards rushing and receiving, that's pretty easy, I think. Christian McCaffrey, over 31.5 receiving yards. He can break that off easy. Just one play, I think he can get that. The last 2 weeks, he's been over that with 71 yards last week. They are playing Dallas. So with that pass rush, they might be dinking him off a little more. He might get those yards pretty quickly. So those are my bets for the week.
Yep. A couple things I want to add for your first two props. Zach Wilson, I know, like you said, it's hard to believe, but he played his best game against the Chiefs. He looked really good. I think he's starting to unlock for that offense. Your second one for the rushing props, you said they're not up. There was a quote from Robert Saleh saying that Breece Hall is going to be no longer on a snap count. So whatever Breece Hall's rushing, whatever his rushing is, take it. Take the over.
And take the touchdowns.
Yep. So, all right, we'll finish up there, and that'll do it for this podcast. Hoping to go 2-0 for my bets and start a new streak for Chris. All righty. We'll see you guys next time.
Later.